step by step from scratch, how can we create a complete inventory system to help us control everything that we received and everything that we ship out or everything that we sold. We're going to create first the items list to help us automate the other parts of the spreadsheet. And then we're going to create the receipt side to register everything that we received in our stock inventory. And also we can register everything that we sold or everything that we shipped out of the stock. And we can also see the inventory balance or the quantity on hand that we have for each one of the items. And something here that is very important is commonly we have some discrepancy or some difference between the actual stock quantity to the value that we have in the application. So this is why we can use the quantity on hand to know the quantity that we have available in the inventory. However, we can also make changes using the inventory check, as I did here for the item B because of the expiration date. Even though I had 4 units available to sell, I could not sell those units because the expiration date. And this is why the quantity offset here is -4. And then later on for the same item, item B, I find 1 good unit that I could sell for the item B. So this template right here, we can control basically everything, even the discrepancies between the physical inventory and the application that we have here. And all the changes that you do in the inventory check are going to be automatically updated in the quantity on hand number. As we can see right here for the item B, I had received 6 units and I sold 2. The simple math right here is gonna retrieve the number 4, right? I receive 6 and sell 2. So the difference, the balance is equal to 4. However, as I did some corrections using the quantity offset, the quantity on hand for the item B is equal to 1 unit. And now it's perfectly correct with my actual inventory. So anyway, let's take a look in a step-by-step from scratch. How can we create this complete template to help us manage our inventory? We can first start with the items list. So here in the footer, I can click and change the sheet 1 name to right-click, rename, maybe items list, enter. I can also go to the header, click over here in the title and change it to inventory template, enter. Now going to the cells, in each one of the columns, I can create a information that is very important to me, such as the date that I registered each one of the products, and also the SKU or the ID or the number of the product. I can also have the name or the description, the brand of the product, but I'm going to skip those options and I want to go to unit of measurement. I think it's very important to have the unit of measurement because there's a lot of items that we can purchase as gallons or we can receive as gallons and also as ounces, inches, or pack of 12, or pack of 6, or pack of 3, or also 1 single unit. So there's a lot of different options as the unit of measurement, and it's very important to control those units. Now going back to the dates, instead of manually input the date, such as January 1st of 2025, I don't want to expend some time to input the date. I want to save time. So that way I can input a data validation here to help me create a calendar. And that way I can just click and select the date that I like to input within the cell. That way I want to select all the cells within this column. So let me go to the second cell here and then Control-Shift down to select everything within this column. Now I can go to data and data validation. Here to the right, I can click add rule. And then instead of using drop down as a criteria, I can change drop down to is valid date. Okay, simple as that. Click on done and then close this panel. And as we can see, if you go to the first cell here into the spreadsheet, if you double click 1, 2, now you have a calendar. And it's much easier to input the date that you need to use. Double click, select the date, 1, 2, and on. So it's much easier. Now let me input here some products. Maybe as a SKU, I can use something like this. And the first item that I'm going to have is item A. Also going to have item B, item C, and on. It's just a sample, but of course you can use different or actually real products here. Okay, so I just register all the items that I need to use. And if I need to use some new items in the future, I can use new rows to input the new data. So simple as that. Now let me select the column A, B, C, and D to change the design and the layout a bit. So let me go here to the right and then align everything in the center and also align everything in the middle. Now let's go to the headers, select everything and go to put the font in bold. Also change the font to a white one, and the background I can use maybe a darker color such as this blue right here. Yeah, it's not that dark, but I think it's okay. Now we can move on to the second step. That is when we receive new inventory. And the way I want to click here in this plus sign to add a new sheet. And in this new sheet right here, I can right click and then rename. I can give it a name, maybe receive, enter. As this new spreadsheet right here, I also think it's important to have a date and also the SKU or the ID of the product and the name, the unit of measurement, the quantity. We can also have here the unit cost and the total cost. If you want to add different informations, you can do so. So be free to do it. As the date, we need to manually input the date that we are receiving new items into our inventory. However, we can do the same thing as before. We can create here a calendar, but I don't want to do it all over again. So I want to go back to the previous sheet, and maybe I can click in any cell right here, and then Control-C to copy, go back to the receive, and then I can select everything, Control-Shift down, and then Control-V, and then that's it. So 1, 2, yeah, it's working. Now I can input here a date, much faster and easier than before manually. As the SKU or the ID, I think it's a good idea. Instead of manually input the data that we need here, we can create a drop-down list with all the options that we already registered before in this items list. So to do it is pretty much easy. Let's go back to the receive, and I want to select everything here again, Control-Shift down, okay? Now I can go to data and data validation. To the right, I can select add rule, and yes, I want to use a drop-down list as a criteria. However, I don't want to input manually the options. I want to go to the drop-down and select from a range, because the way we can select the list that we did before. So clicking this small square here, and a new window is going to appear here for you. You can go to the item lists and select here the range, everything that you have in the column B. We can select until the ending of this spreadsheet. So I know instead of using B9, I need to use B1000 like this, and then okay. I can click here. As you can see here, the range, yeah, indeed is using B1000, so it's correct. Now I can click OK or done, close this right panel right here. And as we can see, now we have this drop-down list. And of course, if you don't like this design right here with rounded corners, you can change it. So let's go again to the data validation, and right here, click just once, and advanced options. You can choose instead of ship, arrow, for example, because that way now you have a different design. Let me close this panel. I think it's okay with this design. Let's go back to the top of the spreadsheet. And whenever I want to input a SKU, I have all the options that we did register before. So maybe I want to input this item right here, and also another one right here, maybe this one. Now, something that is very important is I don't want to, from the SKU, from the ID, manually remember or input the names of all the items that I have, and also the unit of measurement. So maybe we can use the VLOOKUP function to bring back as result the name and the unit of measurement using the SKU as a criterion. Equal sign VLOOKUP function. Click here. As the third key, I want to use the SKU, comma. As the range that I want to look for, I want to use the items list, the column B, C, and D, the entire column, comma, index. Index is the column that you want to retrieve as the result. Here, the SKU is the first column, the name is the second one, and the unit of measurement is the third one. First of all, I want to retrieve the second column, the name. So, number 2, comma, I want to use 0 as this argument because I want to have a exact match. So close parentheses and then enter. Okay, I done. And if I change the SKU to another one, as you can see, the item is going to be automatically updated for us. I can do the same thing for the unit of measurement. But first, let's move this, drag this formula down at the bottom right corner of the cell, click, hold, and drag. But when we drag this formula down, as we can see, we can get some errors here. And this happened because we don't have any SKU in the cell. So this is why we got an error, because we are not looking for anything. So this is why we got the error. But if I change the SKU to something, as we can see, the error disappeared. And to solve the error in the cells where we not filled yet with the SKU, I can use, let me double click in the first cell, 1, 2, and immediately after the equal sign, I can use the if arrow function like this, open parentheses, and then immediately after the last parentheses, you can use comma, and then open and close quotations. That means nothing. Close parentheses, enter. And if I bring again this formula down, now instead of having a arrow as result, we're gonna have now a blank cell. Let me bring this formula down, Control Shift down arrow, okay? Here, how can I do to drag this formula all over the spreadsheet until the last row that I have? We already select all the cells, but now it's important to use a different shortcut key, that is Control D, Control D. That's it. Now all the cells that we have contains the function that we did. Let's double click in this first cell again, 1, 2, select everything within, and then Control C to copy. Now you can press ESC to get out of the cell. In the unit of measurement, 1, 2 in the cell, Control V to paste. I want to use actually the same formula as before. However, the only difference is going to be the column that I want to retrieve as result. Instead of using the number 2, now I want to use the number 3, that corresponding to the unit of measurement. 3 and then enter. Okay, let me bring this formula down to Control Shift down, Control D, and that's it. Whenever I change the SKU or input a SKU to a new row, as we can see, now we're gonna have automatically the name of the item and also the unit of measurement. The quantity needs to be manually input here because there's no way Google Sheets know the quantity that you are receiving into your inventory. So we need to manually input here the quantities. Okay, also the unit cost needs to be manually input. Let me use 999, 20, 22, 100. Now the total cost, we can do a simple math here. That is a multiplication between the unit cost and the quantity. So equal sign unit cost, as we can see, the Google already suggests the math for us, and it's correct. Anyway, I want to manually do it. Unit cost, asterisk, times the quantity. Enter. I also need to bring this formula down, so Control Shift down, Control D. Okay, we're gonna have zeros as result in the blank rows, but I'm gonna keep it that way. I don't think it's a problem. Let me select the column F and G and change the number format to a currency one. So I can just click in this dollar sign right here. Yeah, that's it. I can also select everything, all the columns, and go to align in the center and align in the middle. And also, again, select the headers, put everything in bold, use a white font text color, and change the background to a different color, maybe a greenish one. Okay, I think it's good. Maybe I can increase the width of the column B, click in between the column B and C, click, hold, and drag to the right. I want to do the same thing for the column C and the column D. Yeah, that's it. Now we can do the opposite in the third part. We just did here the received items side. Now we can go to the sales side when we ship the items out of the inventory. And because I want to use some similar informations, maybe we can duplicate this sheet. So let me right click here in the receive and duplicate. Now we have a code of the received. Right click again, rename. I'm gonna give it a name such as sales, but you can use other name if you want to. Let's start with change the colors in the header to a different one. Maybe I can use a reddish color. And instead of having the unit cost, I want to have the unit price, because now we are talking about the sales and also the total price. The other informations I want to keep the same, because I think all those informations are very important. And if you want to, you can also add new columns here about the customer name, the customer location, address, region, things like that, okay? What I want to change is, let's say I just sold in the item C 5 units or 5 inches. In item B, I just sold, let's say 2, and here 15, and here 22. Okay, I know that I have received 20 packs. However, I'm selling 22. I know that it's not gonna look good in the balance of the inventory, but it's important to have that in mind, okay? Because that way we can make some inventory check. And we also gonna see how can we do it here in the 5th step. Now let's move on to the 4th step, that is the inventory balance, or the place where we can check the quantity on hand for each one of the items that we have, the difference between the receive and the sales. So knowing that, let's add a new sheet. This one is going to be right click, rename, inventory, enter. And as the informations I can have the SKU or the ID and the name, the description of the product. I can also have the total received and the total sold, and the difference between those two, or the balance, or maybe the quantity on hand. So those are the informations that I want to use. Let me select everything here, all the columns, click, hold, and drag to the right to make sure I can evenly make all the heights, the widths the same. As the SKU, I want to bring all the SKUs that I have registered in the items list. So instead of manually code all the time that I input new items, I need to code everything here. I can use a formula here in Google to help me to bring all the values that I already have. So equal sign unique. This is the function. Click. And the only thing that you need to do is select the range that you want to use. And the range in this case is here in the items list, everything within the column B. But let's say now I have the items from the cell B2 up to the cell B8. But maybe tomorrow or next week, I'm going to have new items. In the way the range needs to grow. So how can I do it? Instead of selecting a small range like this, I can select everything up to the cell B8000 like this. And then I'm going to press enter. So now I have all the SKU, so all the IDs that I already registered. And if I input a new SKU, automatically I'm going to have the result of this new SKU right here. To retrieve the name, I can use the equal sign, VLOOKUP function, click here. Cert key is going to be the SKU, comma, the range that I want to use is in the items list, column B and column C, comma, the index is number 2 because I want to bring back the second column, comma, 0 because I want to use exactly match, close parentheses, enter. Control Shift down, Control D, as we did learn before. Again, we're gonna have a issue and a arrow. So 1, 2, immediately after the equal sign, if arrow, open parentheses. Now immediately after the last parentheses, comma, open and close quotations, close parentheses, enter. Again, click in the cell, Control Shift down, Control D. Okay. Now how can I have as result the total received and the total sold? Because let's say item A, what is the total received for item A? If I go to the received template, I can see there is nothing within the item A name. However, if I take item B, for example, I already got 5 units of the item B. Or I can actually have another receipt for the item B, 1, 2. Let me input here a new date, and again, received the item B, this time just 1 unit for $20. Okay, so now I have 5 right here and 1 down here. The total is 5 plus 1 equal to 6. So this is the total received for the item B. But how can I do this calculation automatically here in Google Sheet to retrieve the correct result? I can use the equal sign sum if function. The sum function can adapt all the values that I have in a range. However, the sum if can adapt with a condition with a certain criteria. In this case, the name or the SKU of the item. Click in the sum if, the range where I have the criteria is going to be here in the receive, and I want to keep with the column B, SKU, comma, the criterion that I have is in the inventory and is the SKU of the item, comma, the sum range is going to be again in the receive, and I want to use the total cost or the unit cost. The quantity. I'm just stripping here. So quantity, okay? I want to add up the quantity. And then press enter. And I'm done. Okay, 0 as result. It's correct because as we saw before, item A and got any items. Let me bring this formula down. Okay, so now as we also saw before, item B is equal to 6 because we have 5 at the top and 1 at the bottom. So the addition of those values are equal to 6. So, okay, it's correct. It's time to bring this formula down. Control Shift down. Again, Control Shift down. Control D. Okay. Now the total sold, we're going to do something similar. However, instead of using the receive sheet, I want to use the sales sheet. Equal sign sum if, double click or just click once. The range is here in the sales and column B, comma, the condition is going to be the inventory, the first SKU, comma, and the sum range is going to be the sales in the column E, where I have the quantity. Simple as that. Enter. Control Shift down, Control D. Okay, now we have everything that we received, everything that we sold for each one of those items. The difference between those two is just a simple math. Equal sign total received minus total sold. Enter. This is the difference between those values. And that way, I'm going to have the quantity on hand. Do I want to use the autofill to fill in all the rows? Of course. So let me click in this OK sign. And yeah, that's it. Now I can see the quantity on hand for each one of the items. Maybe I have 0, sometimes I have 4, sometimes I have 5, and also sometimes I have negative numbers. If I have a negative number, it indicates that I sold more than what I have in stock. So I need to check, why did this happen? And can I solve this problem? I don't know. I need to check this situation right here. But anyway, with this column right here, we can check a lot of information. We can analyze the items that we have. Let me select the column A up to the column E and align everyone here in the center and also vertically. Select the headers, put everything in bold, change the font color to white and the background to a yellowish one. Okay, I think it's good now. Another thing that is very important, instead of only have the quantity on hand or the inventory balance like we now have here, is also the ability to change the quantity available on the stock. So let's say I know that item B, I have 4 units on hand. However, I check in the stock and those items I cannot sell anymore because they expired, let's say. So I need to get rid of this number 4 right here. But if I do it manually, instead of using the 4, input the 0, enter, I'm gonna get rid of the formula. And this is something that I cannot do because the automation is not gonna work anymore in the cell if I change the formula into a manually inputted number. So I need to keep up with the formula and do something else to help me with this situation. Knowing that, let me click in this plus sign to add a new sheet. And this one, I want to right click here and go to rename, inventory, check. Or we can actually use another name, but let's keep up with this one here. The informations that I want to use are the date. Here is going to be very important to have the date, because to know what is the date that I did each one of the chains in the inventory. And let me go here to the items list just to code the format of the date that I already have in a blank cell. So again, in the inventory check, Control Shift down, Control V to paste everything. 1, 2, okay, yeah, it's working. Now I can have the SKU, ID of the items, also the name of the item, the quantity offset or the quantity that I want to change, And maybe we can have a note to know why I did some change in the stock quantity. Now, as the SKU ID and the name, I'm gonna use again a drop-down list and the VLOOKUP function. But I don't want to do it all over again. That way, maybe I can go here to the receive, copy here the column, those two blank cells in the SKU and in the name, Control C to copy, go back here to the inventory check, Control V to paste. Now, Control Shift down, Control D to paste this formula down. Now we have the drop down and also the VLOOKUP function. Quantity offset, so let's say the item that has a problem is the item B because of the expiration date, right? I need to get rid of those 4 quantities right here. Let's go back here to the inventory. Let's take the items B, okay? So the quantity offset is -4 because I want to get rid of 4 units that I have in stock. Enter. And why is that? Because the expiration date. Enter. So as we can see, the note is very important to have within this sheet right here. Also the date, 1, 2. Okay. Now let me select the column B, C, D, and E and increase a little bit the width. I want to select everything, all the columns, align horizontally and align vertically. Also change the format of the header, put everything in bold, change the font color to white and the background to a purple one. I already did here a quantity offset for the item B, but if I go back to the inventory, as we can see, the item B remains with the 4 in the quantity on hand. But why is that? Because we also need to update the formula. But how can I do it? Maybe we can use here the SUMIF function to retrieve everything that we have did in the quantity offset to this spreadsheet right here. So let's say that SUMIF is also important because if I did another change in the item B, let's say here I said that I have 4 units with problems with the expiration date. So this is why I cannot sell those items anymore. But going on the days, I check again the item B and I found that I can actually sell one of those items, or I found one item B into my stock that I can sell normally. So I can go here, do another change in the item B, let's say, and now the offset is equal to 1 because I found one item available to sell. And I can input here a note and on and on. So the SUMIF is important because I have now 2 different quantity offsets for the same item. So I need to add up the values. -4 add to +1. So this is why it's important to use the SUMIF function. And if I have another one for the same item, the SUMIF is always maintain the quantity on hand update. So let me click in the first formula, 1, 2. I want to put this subtraction in between parentheses just to make sure Google do this math first, and then I want to add with the SUMIF function. Click once, okay? The range that I want to use is here in the inventory check, the column B, the SKU. Comma, the criteria is here in the inventory, SKU. Comma, and the sum range is gonna be again in the inventory check, the entire column D. That's it. Let me hit enter. Okay, now as we can see, we got the same result as before because we don't have any change for the item A. However, for the item B, we have. So we have currently 4 units on quantity on hand available to sell. However, with the change that we did in the inventory check, the +4 is going to become 0 because we get rid of 4 units, remember? And then we add 1 more unit. So 0 to 1. We're going to have 1 as result. Let's check if it's correct. Click, hold, and drag down. Yeah, okay. So as we can see, 1 is now the new result for the item B. That way we can make sure we always have the quantity on hand matching with our inventory. Control Shift down, Control D to copy this formula down. And that's it. This is how we can create this complete system to control our stock using this free tool that is the Google Sheet. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or, of course, any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow as every day has a new video. I see you there.